First-time customers at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com receive $25 in WagerBucks after your first initial purchase. All you have to do is sign up, make your purchase, and you'll get $25 in credit.
Welcome to Wager Talk Today. Teddy covers the Prez. What a show. Let's get to the lead story. 2 nights in a row. Easy bet. And what a fun game in college football, Teddy.
Yeah, really. Weeknight fun belt action last night. A clear right side over 111 points scored in regulation last night. Arkansas State versus Georgia State. And people always ask, what's the difference between the smaller conferences in college football and the SECs and ACCs and Big 12s of the world? The answer is not necessarily on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah,
sure. The offensive guys are smaller, but the real difference between the major conferences and the group of 5 conferences is what you see on the defensive side of the football. The size, the speed, it just isn't there. And last night we saw 2 teams struggle defensively. Easy right side cash for overbettors, and Sun Belt is a fun belt to watch on these weeknights during football season.
And Teddy, that is such a great point. I mean, when was the last time a top-notch edge rusher came from a low-rated school? I mean, you see it with quarterbacks, Flacco and Wentz, and it's such a great point. That D-line on Alabama, a whole different ball game to a D-line on UL Monroe, that's for sure. Guys, big show up today. Rob Veno, right off the top, we're going to talk college football. The Houston, Tennessee game. That doesn't sound like college football, my bad. Duke and NC State, and the Western Kentucky UAB game. And mid-major Matt, dude, we got a whole NFL prop segment. Guys, if you have not heard mid-major Matt talk NFL props, you've got to stay around. It's going to be such a great segment. I want to give a shout out to TransCanada. Literally logged on and said, the only reason I watch the show is to hear my name get called out. Okay, got called out. Now give us a like. Teddy, what do you got in the big game breakdown?
Big game breakdown. We'll talk some college football. Friday night ESPN, SMU and Tulane. We'll break that down later in the show as well.
Let's go. Rob Veno, the hair. We love him. That's why you're on Fridays, dude. Our most watched show. Welcome to Wager Talk Today. Let's get straight into it. Right off the bat, Houston going into Tennessee. Tennessee off a short rest. Houston feeling good about themselves. Finally, plus 3.5 to the Texans. Rob, that's your pick. Tell us why Houston's the right side.
Yeah, I like the addition of the 0.5 point here, Prez. Earlier in the week, we only saw 3, but 3.5 makes it even that much more attractive. Hey, listen, it's a divisional contest. Let's start there. When you're ranking NFL games, you start with divisional, then you go to conference, then you go to non-conference as far as meaningful is concerned and as far as how much effort you're going to get out of each side. So we'll get full effort here. Prez, you talked about the short work week for Tennessee, and, generally speaking, a Tuesday game, you would call this an ultra short work week, and you'd see a flock of money towards Houston, yet that has not been the case here. And maybe because Tennessee, prior to the Buffalo game, in 2 weeks, only practiced twice. Once was a walkthrough. So do they necessarily need to practice? I think they do. I think the short work week comes into play here. You're talking about only 3 or 4 days. They do have some positives here. Adam Humphries is going to come back at wide receiver, which is helpful to them. But if I get into just the nuts and bolts of this game, the main factor here is if you're Houston, you have to keep Deshaun Watson upright. It's been the biggest problem of this team for as long as he's been part of this team is the amount of sacks that he takes. The Titans only have 6 sacks this year in 132 pass attempts against them. And Deshaun Watson was kept pretty clean last week. against Jacksonville. Certainly Jacksonville, a lesser defense than Tennessee's, but Tennessee's has its flaws. You can throw on them. And if Watson's comfortable, he showed last year against this team that he can put up some numbers. I think that they probably do here. Their run defense may get pushed around. I mean, it's not a good run defense. And if Tennessee figures to go, or if they decide to go run heavy with Derrick Henry, certainly they'll move the ball that way. But they're 0-3 as a favorite here. Tennessee just not winning by margin. This is a desperation game for the Houston Texans, a team that if they have any long shot hopes of climbing back into the divisional race, it's got to be a win here. I think plus 3.5 is probably the right way to go.
And Rob, this is a game where I've got a free play up on the total for this game. I like the over between the Texans and the Titans. Houston certainly has the explosive playmaking capability to score points in bunches. And the Titans last week, 6 for 6 in red zone tries. With Tannehill, they were the best red zone team in the NFL last year, and they showed signs of that this week as well. Do you like the over? It sounds to me, in your analysis, you'd rather have the over here than the under. You think both offenses are primed to move the football?
Yeah, I would, Teddy, for a couple of reasons. I was initially surprised that the number went down where total is concerned. I think I saw 53 open, down to 52.5, maybe even 54 open. But for Houston, and I talked about the pass rush, they faced some extreme pass rushes already as far as blitz teams are concerned. Pittsburgh's one of the best sack teams in the NFL, if not the best. Kansas City's a blitz-oriented team. Baltimore's a blitz-oriented team. And as I mentioned, if you can keep Watson upright, you get yourself more opportunities downfield with their speed. I also think that Tennessee, once again, the Adam Humphries return is bigger than most people would think. Jonnu Smith at tight end has been quite the revelation, but you combine him now with A.J. Brown, and you got quite a trio there. So I would think that this thing gets up and over. I'll say real quick, guys, Tennessee scores 28 points, 4 touchdowns last week on drives of 12, 18, 23, and 30 yards. They really were set up in great point-blank position for 28 of their points. As long as Houston doesn't do that, I think they can stay in the game.
Rob Veno with us. Rob, you're just rolling, man. Number one handicapper at WagerTalk.com in all sports combined in 2020. You're doing it in NFL. Outstanding season. So, guys, make sure to listen to anything Rob says NFL related. But now we're going to college. So, you don't need to listen. I'm just playing around. Rob knows his stuff. Rob, Duke game. Where are you going in it, brother?
Here I'll go over the number, guys. I think we're looking at 60 when I checked before we came on air. One of the main reasons here, guys, is what I expect to be a very, very fast tempo game. Duke ran 102 plays last week against Syracuse. And the week before that, 76. The week before that, 78. It's a team that in the last 3 weeks has began to increase their tempo. Fits right in with what NC State does because they're an up-tempo team as well now that Devin Leary, their quarterback, has been back for the last couple of weeks. But let's just look at Duke real quick for a minute. 102 plays against Syracuse. They scored 38 points despite having 4 turnovers. 76 plays against Virginia Tech. They score 31 points. 78 plays against Virginia. They get to 20 despite 7 turnovers. All 3 of those games went over the total. NC State this year is 4-0 over the total. So you've got a couple of teams here with a number of 60 that in college football can play very, very small when you get good offenses together. I'm going to revert back to a quote, Teddy. You'll love it because it's a coach quote. But David Cutcliffe heading into last week, and David Cutcliffe is a guy, when he talks, guys, you can believe him. You don't have to sift through coach speak, go through the weeds and try and figure out what he's saying. He'll tell you flat out what he means. Last week, he said before the Syracuse game, we are very, very close to starting winning games here. And, of course, they go out and they slaughter Syracuse last week. He's built, he's the offensive coordinator now. He took over that charge, that duty. And the play calling here is exactly 50-50. He's got a balanced run-pass offense here with a quarterback in Chase Bryce, who has a live arm and's got some good receivers. NC State's allowing 447 yards per game. Just looks like a good matchup that way. It looks like a good matchup the other way as well. I'll note real quick here, guys, that if you saw the NC State-Virginia game last week, you saw a backup quarterback for Virginia come in wearing the number 36. I don't think I've seen that since, I don't know, Pop Warner. But the quarterback, Lindell Stone, threw 54 times against NC State for 240 yards. Virginia Tech ran against them. Whatever you can do, NC State's vulnerable to. Duke can do both. The NC State offense, let's hit there real quick. Devin Leary, the last couple of weeks, 30 points and 38 points. He fits the offensive scheme of Tim Beck, power spread, sprint out, roll out. It'll keep him away from Duke pressure. I think, each of these defenses, all they have going for them is a pass rush. And I think NC State can keep their QB clean because of the design of the offense. If Duke can keep Bryce upright for the majority of the game, this thing should hit well into the upper 60s, never mind just 60.
Yeah, Rob, we know about that Virginia NC State game, that's for sure. Teddy put the over out last week, won it. I watched the game start to finish, called Teddy up. I'm like, way to go, man. I bet your play blind. It won. He's like, I'm mad I didn't bet NC State. I should have bet NC State. God, even in the throes of an orgasm, Teddy finds misery.
I should have bet NC State. I was mad at myself for not betting. The over was not the right side in that game was NC State, not the over. The over got there, but the right side was NC State. But that said, Rob, I want to ask you: when I'm watching teams early in the season, especially, I'm thinking to myself, over team, under team, over team, under team, and that's pretty well exclusively where I'll go with that team until proven otherwise. First time I saw NC State this year, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best over team in college football. Would you agree?
Yeah, and they were playing with a backup quarterback at that stage, Teddy.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense was the main reason why they were getting over the total. Now that they have potential on the offensive side, and remember last week, they throw a red zone pick. They get a touchdown overturned by replay, NC State. So they had multiple opportunities in that game as well. I would say yes, but I would say this, to your point, Duke is a different example because Duke is a developing offensive team. And I think Duke at the beginning of the year, when you watch them against Notre Dame and BC, you wouldn't have thought over, but Cutcliffe has them coming on. I think of Duke right now, guys, as the team that we saw about 3 years ago that was extremely fast. I know that Belk Bowl brings back painful memories for a lot of people, but that's the style of team offensively Cutcliffe is putting together right now.
Yeah, and it just on that note, Teddy, I think their neighbors down the road, North Carolina, might have something to say about that. That's an offensive over team as well. Let's get to the next game. Western Kentucky at UAB. And Rob Veno, you like the favorite here. Why should we bet UAB?
I'm picking on Western Kentucky here, Prez. And I've got a good favorite as well. A good favorite that's off of a bye week. A favorite that's extremely good defensively against a underdog that can't get out of their own way offensively. In fact, last week they wound up against Marshall, pulling their starting quarterback, Tyrell Pigrome, the Maryland grad transfer, who they thought as a dual threat would be able to lead this offense, but it just hasn't happened. 290 total yards per game this season. The only time they've gone over 300 was against defensively pitiful Middle Tennessee, and they only got to 326 in that game. They're going to come up against the UAB defense. That's how, as I mentioned, couple weeks to prepare. A defense that's rounding into form under Bill Clark. They only allowed 280 yards to Texas San Antonio, 315 to South Alabama in their last two games. Believe me, Western Kentucky's offense is nowhere near those two. So the matchup really comes to be a hand-in-glove fit. I think that Western Kentucky, as much as I pick on their offensive problems, their lack of quarterback play, their lack of ability to win the line of scrimmage, no downfield threat whatsoever, which will allow UAB to crowd the line of scrimmage with 8 or 9 guys, however many they want. But they've got defensive problems as well. Here's a team that since the Louisville game, their opener of the season, they haven't forced a single turnover. They've only generated 4 sacks in 3 games other than Middle Tennessee, who can't protect Asher O'Hara to save their lives. And they're allowing 195.5 rushing yards per game. That's bad news when you see UAB Spencer Brown coming at you. I think the quarterback switch here for UAB to Bryson Lucero has paid dividends. Tyler Johnston III was just a mistake machine, so they've gotten that fixed out of the way. I'll add to it real quick, guys. Western Kentucky's 0-4 against the spread. The 2 times they've been underdog this year, they've lost by 14 and by 24. Last week's game was 38-0 before the Western Kentucky had a drive of over 33 yards. Their first 9 drives were 6 punts, 3 fumbles.
Great breakdown, Rob. I love having you on. You're so good at what you do. What are you promoting this weekend?
I am promoting college football 5% Saturday. Excuse me for that slip up, Prez. 5% Saturday in WagerTalk terms. Going to be posted as soon as I take these headphones off and get off of the show. Obviously, with the COVID cases across the country, you almost have to wait till the last minute before these client releases happen. But we're going to have a 5% play up and available, WagerTalk.com.
Beautiful stuff, Rob. One of our listeners, Johnny Outlaw, says, I need to give you a raise.
I love Johnny Outlaw.
I understand. So call me. We'll discuss your raise. Let's put a date down. November 3rd, 2023. Commercial break. We're right back. Teddy's 6 Bs and a whole lot more.
Every Monday is $9 Mondays over at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Get any best bet or daily package for only $9.
Welcome back to Wager Talk Today, your sports central for gamblers. Let's do a little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. Book report from Thursday night. No Thursday night NFL. I don't know about you guys, but that was weird last night. I'm so used to Thursday night football every week. When you don't have it, you miss it. That said, there was certainly plenty to talk about in the MLB betting markets last night. Lots of over money in the Rays and Astros. The 8.5 got bet up to 9.5. 4-3 final. All the total money for Tampa and Houston. The books got to keep all those bets. And this series just got interesting. Again, of course, it was only 1-1 after 5 innings. First 5 under. All good. And of course, that's about the other game. I'm an idiot. Sorry. The other game was 1-1 after 5 innings. I'll talk about that in a second. Sorry. But it's worth noting, there's nothing better than going live. Series price. Houston, plus 140, plus 150, plus 160 before the series started. They were plus 280 when they were down 0-1. They were plus 550 for the series after they were down 0-2. Plus 1,600 only after down 0-3. Then it was plus 800, plus 850 after 1-3. And now we're back in the plus 300 range, down 2-3. So from a series price standpoint, see from plus 140 up to plus 1,600, back to plus 320. If you can time your series prices correctly, along with a wager on the side for that game, you can really put yourself in some positive expectation situation. There was under money in the Dodgers game. That's the one that was 1-1 after 5 innings. First 5 under cashes, but of course, we saw a rough night for the Dodgers bullpen. And of course, the under money for the Dodgers game. Full game lost that too, total-wise. A good result for the house. College football, I mean, it wasn't a big decision, the Arkansas State, Georgia State game. Although anytime you get to 111 in regulation, we got to call out the under as a bad bet. We had a really bad under bet on Wednesday when the Dodgers scored 11 runs in the top of the first. And if you had under in Arkansas State, Georgia State, at least you didn't sweat it last night. Bad bet on that under. Prez, back to you.
Awesome stuff, Teddy. And yeah, I lost my baseball play last night. I was on the Dodgers minus 1.5. But man, I mean, like, I'm on a 21-6 run. Vivian was like, "Are you upset?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's shitty I lost, but like, this run can't go to 30-5. I'm back today. I got a 5% play up in college football. I got a 4%er in the baseball game." And Teddy, this is where I want to start. We have a question from one of our listeners that I actually want to answer because it's worth answering, and he has been with us since day one and is worth us discussing. Robert writes, so when a capper such as yourself and Teddy gives out, say, 4 3% plays or 4% plays in one day, are you really betting 12 to 16% of your entire bankroll? For instance, Gianni can put out 18 plays across the board on a Saturday, 4% each. That's more than half his bankroll. So let me ask you, and then I'll answer after. If you're releasing 4% plays, are you literally betting 20% of your bankroll that day?
So I don't release 4% plays. I mean, that's just not how it works for me. But when it comes to how much I'm betting, your percentage of bankroll is based on what your bankroll is. All right. When you get a fairly substantial bankroll, your percentage of bankroll for any bet are going to go down because you have a bigger bankroll to deal. So that's how it works. So personally, when I have a 4% bet, I'm not betting 4% of my total bankroll. That's a recommendation for the clients to understand about how strong this play is and how much it's worthy. Would you agree, Lawrence?
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, Teddy, because that's what I was going to say. I mean, I'm probably betting half of that. So if I'm releasing a 4% play, I'm betting only about 2%. But the thing is, that's because our bankroll is where it's at. When we were trying to get the bankroll up to where it is now, I was betting 3, 4, and 5%. But I never personally released 10 plays in a day. I'm never really in that spot where 20% of my bankroll goes up in a particular day, 30%. So I do suggest to all the listeners, stick to what we're saying, 3, 4, and 5%. And as your bankroll gets bigger, go down to 2 and 3%. I want to welcome in Steamy Rave on the Colonel, Chance, Nate, Davy Jones, Johnny Outlaw, Terry Edelman, Daniel, Carmine Bianco, who I absolutely love, bought me the best mugs, Teddy. I just want to give him a big shout out. Thanks, everybody, for always being here. We love you all. Promotion time. WTT19. We've talked about it all week, Teddy. 3 days of anybody's plays, Wager Talk and or Sports Memo. Double dipping is allowed. Teddy, today is the day to use that package. You get Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for $19. If you're a first-time buyer, head over to Wager Talk and Sports Memo. Use the promo code WTT19, and we'll also add $25 of wager bucks into your account. Dude, Matt Joseph coming up. Really excited, man. This is going to be a must-listen-to segment. Let's take a quick break. Then it's NFL props for 15 straight minutes.
First-time customers at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com receive $25 in wager bucks after your first initial purchase. All you have to do is sign up, make your purchase, and you'll get $25 in credit.
Teddy, Matt Joseph, we got a promo that you guys are going to definitely want to take advantage of. Shall we bring him in? There you are, Matthew. Okay. How are you, my friend?
I'm not as good as I was before. I was literally putting a write-up together on the UTEP Southern Miss game, and it just got postponed. So a little disappointed in that.
Well, Matt, welcome to our world. And Teddy and I hear it from Dave Koken on a daily basis. So nothing you can do, man. Put a smile on and let's have a great show. Let's get straight to it. Ravens, Eagles. You got a prop for us?
Yeah, a lot of the props are just going to get started to release today, so there's no official numbers to anything yet, but I'm definitely looking at the tight end, Mark Andrews. He's one of the favorite targets of Lamar Jackson. We actually heard from a Bengal defensive player last week that he pretty much just looks for Marquise Brown. He looks for Mark Andrews, and that even when they knew it was coming, he still got the ball. 6 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown last week and 9 targets against the Bengals. My beloved Eagles, here's a stat for you. QBs are 32 of 37 for 323 yards and 5 touchdowns when targeting tight ends. Nate Geary, who is a linebacker for the Eagles, don't know why he plays, don't know why he starts, but he does. People throwing at him are 23 for 23 against Nate Geary. So I'm looking at the over for Mark Andrews receptions and certainly looking for him to score. Heck, if they even want to throw in Boyle, the backup, he could be worth a look too, because we know how much Lamar Jackson loves his tight ends. So therefore, Mark Andrews is somebody that we're looking at in this Ravens-Eagles game.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you watched Baltimore and Cincinnati last week, Jackson was looking for Andrews play after play, and Andrews delivered for him, making some really impressive catches. So one would think he'd get his fair share of targets again this week.
Guys, really quick, some of you are having trouble with the promo code WTT19. Please email customer service. They will take care of you immediately. When you do, say hi to Missy. She is the best.
Yeah, that's for first-time clients only, which is probably the trouble that they're having.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you guys have bought from WagerTalk or Sports Memo before, you won't be able to use that promo code. Okay, Matt, before we get into the next prop, regale us with how good you have been in props this year.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad that you guys have decided to allow us to also do the props, because it's a market that I feel like is relatively untapped. I'm on a 60.8% run, 29-19 my last 48 NFL props. Actually, 11-6 in baseball props as well as of late. So doing well as there. And look, everybody finds their niche, whether it's Power 5 schools, SEC schools, whatever it is. NFC East. I think one of my niches is just props and finding player values, because when you play DFS and you play fantasy football, you're able to find some values. And remember, they have to put out all these props. You don't have to bet all of the props. So therefore, if you have a game plan before you even look at them, you should find some success in this market.
A great point. Guys, if you want a month of Matt Joseph's plays, use the promo code MJ99 over at sportsmemo.com. Literally only $99 instead of $349. One of probably the best promotion we've ever given on a monthly package. That promo code is MJ99. Matt, Jets and Dolphins, got a prop for us?
Yeah, I'm looking at Myles Gaskin here, and at first when you looked at this Dolphins backfield, it was really muddled. You had Myles Gaskin, you had Matt Breida, you had Jordan Howard, so we weren't sure how the touches were going to be divvied out. Last week against the 49ers, a defense that we thought was pretty good. Of course, they're really banged up. 21 total touches for 91 yards and a touchdown. Red zone statistic here, Myles Gaskin has 18 red zone rushing attempts and 4 targets. Jordan Howard is next with just 8 red zone touches overall. I mean, this Jets defense is just not very good. The key here is, and you're going to have to find it a little bit, there's only certain books that offer it. I would like to get some sort of rushing and receiving combined type prop when I look at Myles Gaskin, because I want to get as many yards as possible. They throw to him a lot. They run it with him a lot. So therefore, you've got to try and find rushing and receiving. If you don't have rushing and receiving combined, maybe do half it, split it up on both, and hope that he hits both or hits one. I also think Myles Gaskin can score a touchdown here. And if you want to get a little sassy, a little saucy, maybe sprinkle something on Myles Gaskin for multiple touchdowns. Although I wouldn't go as much, because if it gets big late, then you might see some Jordan Howard or Matt Breida take over in that backfield.
And it's certainly worth noting, Myles Gaskin, when he first went to Washington in college, I believe he was the number 1 ranked high school running back in the country. This guy was supposed to be a monster. And then he got hurt and his draft stock fell. But he has number 1 running back potential. No question about it. Let's switch now and talk a little Bengals and Colts. We have A.J. Green not being a factor for Cincy of late. Who are you looking at to target for Cincinnati, perhaps, as an over this weekend?
I'm looking at Tyler Boyd, and the good thing about this Bengals offense is we kind of know they're going to throw it 45, 50 times, it feels like, every game. We know Joe Burrow is a guy that doesn't mind, and it's a team that's going to probably be behind. You know, we talked about on the presidential address show on Wednesday about how the Bengals are slow starters and basically go to a no-huddle attack after they're down and let Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow. Well, Tyler Boyd has been one of the benefactors here. He's been targeted 40 times this season. 32 of those have turned into receptions, which is really good considering if you look at A.J. Green, his catch percentage to targets is not very good. We saw him moping on the sidelines. Some people even think he maltraded me on the sideline. Notable slot performances. Indianapolis has coughed up a lot of catches and yards to the slot receivers. Keelan Cole of Jacksonville, 5 targets, 5 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown way back in week 1. Braxton Berrios, that's right, Braxton Berrios, the former Miami wide receiver with the Jets, 4 targets, 4 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. And Jarvis Landry, of course, who has not been quite himself, 9 targets, 4 catches for 88 yards. So to me, this is one of those situations, and it's always a battle to decide whether you want to go receptions or yards. I'm more of a receptions guy because I like to see, as we talked about, and as you looked at with Cole Beasley, that was a rare time I went with yards, and it nearly bit me when he was, 0 for 0 in the first half. But to me, I like the receptions here. I think Tyler Boyd gets fed early and often in this matchup between the Bengals and the Colts.
Guys, quick shout out to our producer, Joe Ranieri. Oh my God, these graphics are so great, Joe. The show looks amazing. Everybody, if you want to hear Mid-Major Matt give out props on every single game on the board, check out the NFL presidential address. It's up at WagerTalk TV. And obviously, Matt, given that you and I have already taped it, I know the next one coming. Give us your team total of the week.
Well, I mean, it's a staple, and it's hit all but once. It's the New York Jets under. And for some reason, we continue to get some value here. I believe last week it was 20.5. This week it's 19.5. And for good reason here. I mean, the Jets offense has scored the Jets themselves have scored 75 points in 5 games. 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns, 9 field goals, and 1 defensive touchdown. That was 7 points short. Of course, you add the 7 points for the extra point as well. I mean, Joe Flacco, Frank Gore, if this was 2000, that would be a really good offense. But this is now 2020 here, and I just don't know how they're going to move the ball. Now, look, people are saying, wait, the Miami defense, if you actually look, they held New England to 21 points way back in week 1. They've held Jacksonville to 13 and San Francisco to 17. The one concern here is those 3 games were actually on the road. At home, they got gashed by Buffalo and they got gashed by Seattle. Well, the Jets aren't exactly either of those 2 teams. And you look at this cornerback group, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. That was a really good free agent signing by Miami. Byron Jones has been really good this year. His numbers, according to Pro Football Focus, are just really good. So to me, under 19.5, as long as we don't get the Fitztragic this weekend in which he's throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, I don't see how the Jets are matriculating the ball down the field and scoring 3 touchdowns here. So under 19.5, under 19, I like it. If there's a 20, I would hammer that as well. But the under for the Jets team total.
And I'm with you 100%, Matt, about that Dolphins defense seemingly getting better by the week. And I love the fact that you're talking player props. We're talking team total props. There's also miscellaneous NFL props to talk about. What do you want to talk about when it comes to with Washington and the Giants? I love this overview of the entire prop betting market.
Yeah, the Washington football team and the Giants looking for their first wins of the season. And this number is not as available as others, so you're going to have to search for it potentially. Last week we hit the over. It was the sacks prop. The Washington football team and the Giants sacks prop is what we're looking at here. Last week we hit the Eagles-Steelers one. That one went over actually in the fourth quarter, but still hit. If you look at the Giants, Daniel Jones has been sacked 16 times so far this season. The Rams had 5 of them, and I kind of think that the Rams and the Washington football team have the kind of a comparable defensive line here. Washington spreads out their talent along their front line, whereas Aaron Donald, of course, is what does it for the Rams here. But you've got a fully healthy Washington football team outside of Matt Ioannidis. You've got Chase Young, who's been really good so far this year. Andrew Thomas has actually allowed the most pressures of any offensive lineman, according to Pro Football Focus, and it's actually 7 more than the next guy. So you know that Chase Young is going to get you 1 or 2 sacks. Now, the Giants' defensive line is going to be a bit of an issue for this side of the prop, but Washington has been sacked 21 times so far this season. You look last week, the Rams just ate them up. Kyle Allen's been sacked twice, and if Alex Smith gets in there 6 times, which, by the way, I felt bad. Every time he went down, I'm like, oh, God, I hope he gets up. But we're going to see Kyle Allen under center. Of course, if he's not effective, you're going to see Alex Smith. And I can't imagine there's much mobility here from Alex Smith. I think Washington does most of the legwork here in getting this sacks prop, but I think the Giants can get 1 or 2 themselves. And if you can find it, I would take the over. I'm hoping it'll be 5.5 for this game.
Yeah, and
Awesome
Kyle
stuff,
Allen's a
Matt.
guy.
Go,
Kyle
Kenny.
Allen's a guy who'll run around and try to create plays in the pocket, which means that he's more likely to be sacked because he's keeping plays alive. So we've talked team totals, we've talked player totals, we've talked miscellaneous props. We got more. Let's talk college team totals. One more for us, just a few minutes here with Mid-Major Matt.
All right, so this one is, I love going even deeper on these sort of things because this is a first half team total, and I'm looking at the over for Georgia Southern, which is 24.5. And you can find this in a lot of places. I looked in a couple of books and found it. The reason why we're going first half here is you've got a team in UMass who's playing their first game of the season. We've seen some teams take advantage of that. We've seen some teams not take advantage of it. But this game was literally scheduled on October 8th. And when this game is kicked off, that will essentially give them quick math, 9 days. So therefore, you have a UMass team that was not supposed to play any games, and now they're playing a triple option team with 9 days notice. Last year, UMass lost to Army 63-7 on the road. It was 35-7 at halftime. Georgia Southern's offense looked good against Louisiana Monroe, scored 35 points in that game, and has the week off. And look, it's a really good, the one worry here is the COVID stuff. I don't want to hear that Shea Wertz or Kennedy or their other really good back are dealing with COVID, so that's something to watch out for. But the reason why we're doing first half here, Georgia Southern has Coastal Carolina next week. And I have a feeling that Georgia Southern's going to pull some guys, maybe even late third quarter if this is a big enough thing, or early fourth quarter. So I don't want the backups to get me my team total here. So we're looking over 24.5 first half points for Georgia Southern as they hopefully beat up on UMass, a team playing their first game of the season.
Great segment, Matt. We're going to have you on regularly to do these NFL props. And guys, if you want to know more of his props, watch the NFL presidential address. Matt, what do you got to promote for us? Including MJ99, everybody. Sportsmemo.com, $99 for a full month of all of his plays. Matt, what's on tap?
Well, also, don't forget, 4 o'clock coming up this afternoon is Prop It Up with Andy Lang and Andrew McGinnis, and we basically talk props. It's mostly NFL, but there's also some Major League Baseball in there, some college football as well. So 4 o'clock on this YouTube channel is Prop It Up here on Friday. But, as the props start coming out, they'll start going up tonight, maybe a little bit tomorrow to beat the market. Because, look, I feel like a lot of people on Sundays just want to bet overs. So you're going to find a lot of minus 150s, minus 160s. Well, if you bet it the night before the big rush, you'll get some better prices. So my props will start going up tomorrow night, maybe some tonight, as they start showing up here in the sports books.
Wonderful. Guys, stay with us. Teddy's big game breakdown coming up, and then Ralph Michaels. Quick break. I guess what some of our people call a Minty or Kelly fix. We're back in 30.
Every Monday is $9 Mondays over at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Get any best bet or daily package for only $9.
It's time for Big Game Breakdown here on Wager Talk Today, your sports central for gamblers. Let's talk a little ESPN action tonight. SMU and Tulane. We're seeing a little bit of SMU money right now as we speak. It's still 6.5, total of 65, but certainly the offshore market is moving to 7, and I wouldn't be surprised if the broader market moves to 7 between now and kickoff. So we are seeing some SMU money as we speak. If you like the Mustangs, and I do at least a little bit, I get involved sooner rather than later and find one of those 6.5s. So last year was 37-20 SMU with the win and cover. It was a regular season finale for both teams. Circumstantially, it was an interesting one. SMU started the season 8-0, then they lost a couple of games. They won this to get to 9 in the bowl game to get to 10. Whereas Tulane's kind of started 6-3. They lost their last 3 regular season games. They did not step up in class well last year. They ended up winning their bowl game afterwards, but SMU was clearly the better team when these two teams met a year ago. The previous 2 years was tight games, both decided by a field goal. So it's not like there's been a huge differential between the Mustangs and the Green Waves in recent seasons. And these are two programs that have noticeably, and we can say finally, gotten better over the last 2 years. SMU was bad for a long time. And then Sonny Dykes won 10 games last year, started 8-0. And already this season, they're undefeated. Tulane, the best record over the last 10 years, has been 7-6. So they haven't had that 10-win success like Sonny Dykes put together last year. That said, their 7-6 has come each of the last 2 years. But we have seen Tulane, they've been good home dogs. They've covered their last 5 as home dogs. They won twice. Right. But we've seen them really struggle to step up in class. And I know it's not even the Navy game I'm talking about. Last week's game against Houston stands out like a sore thumb. Ralph Michaels talks about it. Teams that were -5 in turnovers were 1-90. And then Houston was -5, and now they're 2-90. Tulane scored 24 cheap points, and they were outclassed the rest of the game. They've had a problem with team speed on the opposing offenses. They've had a problem with their own offense and the Frosh QB moving the football with consistency. Yeah, it's not a cheap price to lay with SMU, but at 6.5, that's the only way it can look. Lay the points with the Mustangs. That's what I got for today's big game breakdown. Even with the likes of Reggie Roberson and TJ McDaniel out, I'm not worried about skill position talent for SMU. Shane Buechele has plenty of weapons around him. I think he'll find them early and often in a game SMU is primed to win by margin. Prez?
Awesome stuff, Teddy. Guys, we are not going to do this on a regular basis. But, man, I want to give a shout-out to Robert. Happy birthday, bro. You've been with us since day one. We love you. Have a great year. Let this be the best year of your life, and every year after be even better. The best part was the horns, Teddy. The horns were the best. I wanted to stop talking so I can just hear them. But hey,
I felt like I was at a World Cup game.
Teddy, I'm loving the blue today, man.
Thank you.
I was talking about my shirt.
Oh, I don't. I don't even look at you when we're on air. I really don't. And I'm like, this is black, and I guess there's blue in there. But no, I mean, honestly, I don't look at you. I got you can't imagine how many notes I have open right now. I got this window, and that window.
Try read all the comments and respond to them while hosting a show and talking to you to make sure we don't talk on top of each other and talking to Joe. Yeah, I'm not going to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, which is why that when somebody talks, your answer, oh, that was great. Oh, yeah, that was great. Oh, yeah, great segment. Oh, great stuff. Because you're not listening, dude. You're reading something else. I understand. Whereas I'm not involved in the chat. I don't have to worry about Joe. I literally set you up.
Right. I literally set you up to compliment my ability to multitask, and instead, you went the opposite way.
Not at all. I'm sitting here. So your job is to that's your job is to flow with the bring up the comments, and it's my job to respond to what the guy just said because I'm the one that's listening and you're the one that's worried about keeping the show rolling. That's okay. We're allowed to have functional roles in this show, and we do. Your functional role is to bring in Ralph. God, enough with the biceps, dude.
It's my signature move, Teddy.
Yeah, I'll give you a hint. Get a new one.
Okay, brother. Did you pick out the blazer for Teddy? One people asked. Yes, I did. Ralph, white shirt, red pen. There you are. Oh, I didn't, Teddy? Someone else?
No, this is one of the. Yeah, I think I had 3 or 4 before you, and this is one of the ones that Kara and I went shopping for blazers one time, and this was I got. So this is not one that you and I purchased together. No.
Okay, well, it looks good. Hey, Chuck Brooks, thanks for joining us. Ralph, we love you. We're excited to have you. Regale us, talk. I'll sit back and just drink coffee and learn.
Well, this is just a friendly reminder to people to start it off. With this COVID fans, no fans, limited fans, I just want to remind our viewers, in this 2020 season, college football dogs of 3.5 or more have now covered 61.3% of the time. So that's a pretty powerful statement, that just a blanket statement covering all of college football. Doesn't matter. Away dogs of 3.5 or more, 61.3%. Keep that in mind as you're looking to finalize this week's card. Angle of the day is an NFL system. When both NFL teams are off an upset win, like Carolina and like the Chicago Bears, since 2013, the home favorite, 20 wins, 7 ATS losses, 1 push, 74.2%. And when the total is 41 or higher, the home favorite, a very powerful 80% against the spread, going 25-1 ATS. That, of course, Carolina and Chicago both having pulled the upsets last week.
Now, let me just jump in, Rob, because that's 20 wins, 5 losses, and 1 push, not 25-1. It's 20-5 and 1.
You're right. When you're running through those ATS numbers, 25-1, I certainly understand that. 80% against the spread, so 20 ATS wins, 5 ATS losses, dating back to 2013. Situational
Rob,
play of the day.
If I could ask you one more question real quick before you go on, I don't mean to interrupt, but you talked about the 61% so far this year, blindly betting every college football underdog of 3.5
of 3.5 or more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I want to ask you, some years are just dog years in college, and other times, if you're like, hey, this angle's hit 61% through the first 6 weeks, but maybe it's more like 50-50 the rest of the way. Do you think does this feel like a year where the dogs are just going to keep covering at a 55-60% clip? Or do you think it's going to swing back and the chance to blindly bet dogs for profit has come and gone?
You know, Teddy, this is such a unique year that it's not going to stop me at all from betting a favorite. You know, I might stop and think for a second, but as we progress, we're going to get more and more fans. So we're not having the same playing field from the first 6 weeks as we will. Plus, you start getting some attrition. Having a road team play week 2 when they're fresh is much different than having just played Alabama, Auburn, Florida, and then going to Vanderbilt and being a road favorite where you are physically beat up after multiple games. So to me, I take it with a grain of salt. We'll keep monitoring it week in to keep people apprised, but it's not going to change the way I handicap any favorite in my mind. It'll make me think, is this favorite strong enough? And if it's a yes for me, I'm going to use that play.
Excellent analysis. Let's talk situational play. What are we looking at for this weekend? We've done the angle with the NFL, looking at Carolina as an 80% ATS system. What do we have situational-wise this weekend?
Clemson's now 16-0 ATS as an away favorite of 7 or more, off a game where they outperformed their team total. They're obviously laying 27 to Georgia Tech. So I wanted to just take a second. You know, you heard Matt talk team total for the Jets. Now I'm talking team total. Do our viewers know what a team total is? So let me just explain it this simple. Last week, Clemson was minus 15 to Miami of Florida, and the total was 61. So take your total for the game, 61. Subtract out the favorites roll, minus 15. That leaves us with 46, which you divide by 2. So you now have the Dogs team total at 23. And to get Clemson's team total, you take that same 23, add back in that 15 line, Clemson's team total would have been 38. Now, I will say this. That's how they start with the opening team total. It can get adjusted based on bets. It's not correlated. If someone bets Clemson, they don't automatically move the team total. So you may find a little variance. But for those that aren't familiar with what a team total is, just that's the simple breakdown on how you get that. One other thing I want to mention, Teddy, we've talked about this a lot. Prez, we have as well in college football. Road favorites are a stronger team in college football because you're taking a limited roster. A road roster in college football is anywhere from 68 to 72 players. A roster at home is unlimited. You can have 120 players. So when you're taking, let's say, 70 players on the road, first and second string, 44, you're not going to get a full third strings plus the special teams. So in this spot, Clemson, again, a strong team anyway, not afraid to lay it with the Tigers. And finally, the Wager Talk Did You Know? We talked about winless teams and undefeated teams in yesterday's show. Go back and look at that segment. So now I wanted to look up what teams are that haven't covered the spread. Is there a correlation as well? So if a team, an NFL team, through game number 5 or higher, has yet to cover a spread, well, since 1989, those teams are 56.3%. But if I take out the favorites that are 14 and 18, those away dogs that have yet to cover a spread, you might have won a game, but you have failed to cover the spread, 53 and 33 with 4 pushes, 61.6% against the spread, and a 10 and 4 ATS mark since 2012. So obviously we have an NFL system, makes sense to me, a 61.6% subset. Let's see if it works in college football as well. Well, I went back to 2007 in college football. Game 5 and higher, teams that have yet to cover the spread, 59.3% ATS. And the home teams, just over 50%. Road teams, game 5 and higher in college football, 78, 44, and 4 ATS, 64% against the spread. Pittsburgh, North Texas, Western Kentucky this week, and it will also apply to Kansas next week. So, again, we've talked about ugly teams, but teams know if they haven't performed well. If you've won games and haven't covered as a favorite, you probably are upset. Those are cheap wins. Your team is working as hard or harder. So just some more numbers for you to go into the weekend and hopefully make you a better.
And it's really worth noting, Ralph, when you talk about some ugly teams, talk about the Jets, North Texas, Pitt's had a rough time, et cetera, you're not talking about the elites. You're talking about the teams that have no betting bandwagon whatsoever because they've been losing ATS. And fact is, the betting markets are the great equalizer. 60% plus NFL and college for betting on the teams that have struggled ATS because no one's betting them. They're more likely to cover down the road. Prez?
Ralph, one of our listeners, Robert DeLeo, calls you the talking computer. I love it. The way you broke that math down on team totals was phenomenal. Guys, I recommend you actually rewind and watch it again. That stuff is just pure gold. I can't thank you enough for coming on. What do you got to promote for this weekend?
You know, I have a 5% on tonight's action. I actually have the total in the early game. So, a good time to jump on board for a 7-day or at least a 3-day. Remember, guys, a 3-day all-access package. You're going to get Saturday or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. What a bargain at both Wager Talk and Sports Memo.
Yeah, and on that note, I know WTT19 has given some of you guys issues. That use it, first-time buyers, and if it doesn't work for you, just email customer service at wagertalk.com. Is that right, Ralph? Is that the email address?
It is, but it'll work. There's no issues. All you do is this. You go to the capper that you want. You click the 3-day package. It'll say, do you have a coupon code? You type in WT19, WTT19, no spaces. Right. My correction was that. WTT19, and it'll discount the price down to $19. So, there's no better way to try a handicap you like, be it me, be it Prez, be it Teddy, be it mid-major Matt. We have, 50 guys between the two sites. So, an awesome
36.
special for first-time buyers. How many?
36.
A little embellishment. My apologies.
Teddy, you and Joe Ranieri have a new show. It comes on today, right? Is it today?
No, we just retweeted it today. It's been on for days already.
You just
It's
tweeted out the tease.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to tell us a bit about it quick?
Sure. It's the opening. We're looking at the opening lines for the following week. Look ahead lines. We're talking about the following week's NFL openers as they open. And that's up, Joe, is that up Wednesday? Yeah, it's up every Wednesday now.
Oh, that's going to be great. And you and Joe have awesome chemistry. That'll be a fun show. Guys, I can't thank you all enough. Have an incredible weekend. I hope the ball bounces in the exact spot you need it to land. Teddy, take us home.
Sure. I want to thank Rob Veno for joining us. I want to thank Mid-Major Matt. I want to thank Ralph Michaels. I want to thank you, our viewing and listening audience, for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us on Wager Talk Today. Enjoy the games. Good luck. Have a great weekend. We'll be back right here Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon on the East Coast, with another edition of Wager Talk Today.
First-time customers at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com receive $25 in WagerBucks after your first initial purchase. All you have to do is sign up, make your purchase, and you'll get $25 in credit.